In a sense, Jesus is the most difficult ascended master to talk about, because nobody really wants to hear about Jesus as an ascended master. You have a lot of spiritual people who grew up in the Christian religion like I did, and who were turned off by the outer religion. And many of them have sort of thrown Jesus out with the dirty bathwater of their churches, that they don't want to hear about the ascended master Jesus. And of course, you have the Christians who claim to be followers of Jesus, and they don't want to hear about Jesus as an ascended master, even though it says in their Bible that he ascended to heaven and has been given all power in heaven and on earth. And I must admit that I always had trouble with Jesus as an ascended master when I was younger. And it was partly because I grew up in a Christian culture. My parents were not very religious, and I certainly didn't have religion forced down my throat. But it was always there in the background. And I think what really provoked me, even as a child, I couldn't have put words on it, but it was this idea that Jesus is the only Son of God. And I just sensed intuitively there was something completely wrong there. And then there was all the focus on Jesus as an outer person, that he was so special. He was supposedly perfect, and he was God, and God from the very beginning. And I just sensed intuitively there was something completely off in that view. And so when I first found Ascended Master teachings, which was back in the early 1980s, I focused on other masters. Mother Mary, felt a very deep connection with her from the beginning. Saint Germain, I felt a very, very deep connection with him. So for the first couple of years, I was much more focused on them. And there was talk in the movement I found about Jesus as an ascended master, but I always focused more on the other masters. But gradually over time, I came to expand my view of Jesus, and I came to experience a different side. I came to experience Jesus as a living presence rather than this image, this mental image, this idol, frankly, that has been created by the Christian religion. And, it's just been an amazing journey to start out where I started out, seeing Jesus as this figure up there that was unreachable, unattainable, because he was so different from us. And then coming to realize that as an ascended master, Jesus is not so different from us. Yes, Jesus is God's son, but where did the rest of us come from? We are all sons and daughters of God. The difference between Jesus and us is that Jesus realized it, accepted it, and acknowledged it, and we haven't done it yet. So what really did it for me, what really changed my view of Jesus, was that I came to realize why he came to earth. Now, if you take the Christian religion, you must say that either God or Jesus has a certain cruel streak, because in a sense, it says in the Christian religion that God sent his only son, his only begotten son to earth. But what was the purpose? Jesus was supposedly perfect. So what the purpose of sending him must be so we could see how imperfect we are and how bad we are compared to Jesus. But what I realized is that Jesus started out just like us. And he walked the path of raising his consciousness until he reached a higher level of consciousness, which we, at least in a Christian context, can call the Christ consciousness. Now, in other spiritual concepts and religious concepts, it can be called something else. The Buddha talked about everything is the Buddha nature. Christianity says essentially the same thing. Without him, the Christ consciousness was not anything made that was made. So what I came to realize is that Jesus was not the exception, the only Son of God. He was meant to be an example of what all of us can do, what all of us can achieve by doing what he told us, what he exemplified, letting the human sense of identity die bit by bit until we are reborn in a new sense of identity. And this is what I talk about in a lot of my videos, where I talk about letting go of these separate selves that are based on the illusion of separation, letting them die, and we are reborn into seeing ourselves first as connected beings and eventually accepting the oneness with our higher selves. And this is what the Ascended Masters describe as the path to the ascension, where we graduate from Earth's schoolroom. But how do we graduate? By letting go of this illusion that we are separate beings and coming to accept ourselves as first connected beings. We are connected to something outside of our minds because we realize our minds are not closed systems. And eventually, beyond that, we come to accept oneness with our higher self, and thereby oneness with the Ascended Masters who are representing the higher state of consciousness to us here on Earth. So for me, this was just a revolutionary shift in the way I looked at Jesus, but also in the way I could relate to him. And it took, of course, a number of years. I mean, I'm not saying it happens in 5 minutes, because it's a really dramatic shift in how you look at yourself from the way you are brought up in a Christian context, you know, to look at Jesus way up there, to actually accepting that you have the potential to follow Jesus's example. And it's not an easy path, but it is a doable path for all of us. And that's what I've described basically in all of my videos and on my websites and the books and everything. So if you have been brought up in some kind of religious or spiritual context where you have been programmed, so to speak, to reject Jesus, and especially reject him as an ascended master, I hope you will reconsider. I hope you will reconsider that there's a lot more to understand about Jesus, to grasp about Jesus, than what you were brought up with. To me, what the image of Jesus I was given is just so different from how I relate to Jesus today and how I see Jesus as an ascended being who is here to help us achieve what he achieved. And I also really have come to love Jesus. I have come to realize that I am very close to him. He is really the primary ascended master for me. This may not be the case for you, of course. You may have other masters that are your primary master, but at least for me, he is the primary ascended master. And I've just come to love him as an ascended being. And it's not a love based on this, what you see in so many Christians who will come and say, oh, I love Jesus. But they are loving an idol. They are loving a mental image. But I've come to the point where my love for Jesus is based on experience, a direct experience of Jesus as an ascended being. And there's a lot more that could be said about this. I don't really want to say it here, because this is really just meant to introduce Jesus as an ascended master. And I'm going to post also on my YouTube channel a dictation from him. And I hope you will listen to that and open your heart to experience this incredible being who is giving this release, not only of words, but of the light and the consciousness and his very being and this flame of joy that is behind it. So I hope you can open your heart to experience that, because I can tell you that receiving this dictation was really an incredible experience, an incredible experience. And I hope it can be a defining or a transcendental experience for you as well.